Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is Tuesday, May 19th. Hard to believe, Memorial Day week. We've been in this 9 weeks, and we have a great episode today of Community Together. And I have my good friend and colleague, Marshall Waller, with us today. And he's a family law certified family specialist. And Marshall, welcome aboard. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Lydia. I really appreciate it.
So you own your own firm, Feinberg and Waller, and you've been a family law attorney for 39 years. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and your fellowships? So welcome.
Thank you very much. And hi, everybody. I'm glad you guys are here and tuning in. And I hope I'm going to be able to answer your questions for you, and I'll do my best to do that. As Lydia pointed out, I'm a partner at Feinberg and Waller. We have offices in Calabasas and Beverly Hills. I've been a lawyer for about 39 years, and something I'm stunned that I've been doing anything for 39 years. We have a small law firm. We have 9 attorneys, support staff and stuff. We specialize in all aspects of family law, which is sort of an umbrella term that handles divorce and premarital agreements, postmarital agreements, custody, visitation, domestic violence, things like that. We also do some interstate and international items. Those are usually international custody issues. I'm a fellow in the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers. I'm a fellow in the International Association of Family Lawyers, and I'm a certified family law specialist here in California. Bear in mind that all of the answers to all of the questions that I give here will be based upon California law. That's the jurisdiction that I'm licensed to practice in. And also, every question that I may answer is going to be treated as a hypothetical. And we do that for reasons of ethics and to make sure that I'm not giving legal advice out in a situation where no attorney-client relationship has been yet established and where I don't have all the facts.
And a good comedian on the side, that I know. So, certainly very credible, many years in the industry. And I know that with what's going on right now, with 9 weeks in, and I just want to let everybody know that you can add some comments. You can certainly ask questions on the side, on the chat. And again, it is May 19th, so everything you're going to answer today is based on the information and what you know about the courts today, and it's very important in case anybody's watching this later that this was filmed on May 19th. So thank you for a great introduction, and I would say, given 9 weeks in, what kind of phone calls are you getting? What are people, I mean, a lot of people are from, potentially, this is not a great subject, but it's a real subject. They've been together for 9 weeks. They can't leave. And a lot of people are having trouble living together. What kind of calls are you getting?
Well, that's very interesting. We're getting a lot of interesting calls. It's tough for people to make phone calls because they are in their home with their spouse. And if they're not getting along and if it's problematic, then they have issues. We've actually encourage people to send us text messages or send us an email. If they email us, we can then respond with a cell phone where they can text message and communicate with us that way. And a lot of questions are just about general, what do we do about divorce? How does this work? What's it looking like? These are people that are finding themselves in a dynamic that is unacceptable to them. And so they're exploring their options, which is pretty much how it's always been. The coronavirus didn't really add to that. It just made communication with people a little more difficult for them. We're getting a lot of inquiries about domestic violence. So a lot of people are concerned about that because domestic violence has gone up as a result of everybody sheltering in place. Child abuse issues have gone up. There are some very interesting aspects of that where the Sheriff's Department in Los Angeles County was implementing an initiative where they were going to literally not go door to door, but they were going to start checking on cases of children that they believed might be at risk. And that was ultimately opposed and voted down by the authorities. They didn't think that was a good idea to do. They were going to wait for people to actually reach out. But it's really an issue that's on everybody's mind. And I think that what needs to be stressed is that even though the courts are closed, and for the most part they are closed, they are open for domestic violence issues. The counties are all different, but they're very similar. Some counties are not as rigid with their rules as others. Los Angeles County is the largest family law court system in the country, probably in the world. And they are kind of setting the rules for a lot of the other court systems in the state because they have so much on their plate. People are watching to see what they do. Our courts are closed until June 22nd. However, emergency matters are allowed to go forward. And in the family law world, an emergency matter is a matter involving domestic violence, child abuse, child neglect, things like that. So the courts are open, they are available, and the police are open and they're available. And so if anybody out there is in a situation where you're being victimized in this context, don't hesitate to reach out either to 911 or to an attorney to help you out. I can't imagine that there are any lawyers in California who would not take that call and who would not, if nothing else, try to help you out. Even if you don't have the financial resources, you should still reach out because people will at least give you direction as to what to do. There are remedies available for people who are in that situation. And we are seeing a lot more of that.
So that's horrible, but it makes sense. And restraining orders, I mean, what do they do, for example, if there is a restraining order or there is abuse going on? I mean, where is somebody supposed to go if that does happen? What does the police do, or what does the court do? What are some options that might be available if somebody's going to feel they want to reach out?
The first thing I would do, depending upon your financial situation, is I would reach out to an attorney who practices in the area. That's going to be the quickest way you can get some sort of proactive resolution to your problem. And as I said, you can email attorneys. You can Google them, you can email them, you can explain what's going on. And if you don't get a response within a reasonable period of time, and by that I mean a few hours, then find another one, Google another one in your area. You will find somebody who will help you out. The Los Angeles Superior Court has a self-help system that serves 80% of the people who file for divorce in this county. And they're not staffed right now, but you can still reach out to them on the website, the Los Angeles Superior Court website, and you can reach out, you can make inquiry with emails. There are services in place that will help you. But I think the quickest way to do it, if you're not in immediate danger, if you're in immediate danger, call 911. The police will come and they will address it. And if there's abuse going on, the police have the power to issue what's called an emergency protective order, which is good for 7 days. And that will give you an immediate restraining order. The way that works is the police on site at your house call a judge and they explain the facts and circumstances. The judge authorizes the issuance. That's called an EPO, emergency protective order. They serve it on the person, remove the person from the house if that's necessary, and the victim now has roughly 7 days. They have a restraining order that's good for 7 days, and that gives them the time to try to do something about it. And if you're not in immediate danger, then the quickest way, in my opinion, to address this is to reach out to an attorney who practices in this area who will be able to help you.
And what are the options? I mean, so do they, after 7 days, are the options that one leaves, that one?
Well, here's how it works, basically. Whether you have an EPO or whether you just reach out to an attorney and say, what can I do? Let's say you get the EPO. What do I do now? You reach out to an attorney, or you go online and you try to figure out how to do it yourself. There's a lot of resources available. We have resources available on our website. It's www.feinbergwaller.com. And I'm sure there's going to be some mechanism where we can post that or something if somebody wants to write that down.
www.feinbergwaller.com.
Right. So we have a resources page that will direct people if you don't have the financial resources, or if you're just concerned you don't know what to do. But what happens is the lawyer then gets this information and prepares papers to submit to the court on what's called an ex parte basis, meaning it's an emergency. We have to go in right away. And they either give notice which is 24 hours, or they just don't give any notice and they go in and they say to the judge, here's my problem. I need order to protect me. And you can do that by court call, which is telephone. You can do it by WebEx, which is kind of like Zoom. And not every courtroom has that, but every courtroom is equipped to handle these matters. And they do it in a socially responsible way, a medically responsible way. So you're not exposed. The courts are very, very diligent about protecting social distancing. They're not letting anybody into the courthouse who doesn't have, legitimate business that day. And the kinds of orders you can get a kick out order if the facts support it. You can get a stay away order, no harassment, no battery, no assault, no sexual battery, stay 100 yards away, 5 yards away. You can get temporary custody orders if you need those. And you can get temporary control of property. You can get temporary ownership of your cell phone account if your abuser controls your cell phone and threatens to turn it off. You can get temporary control of your car, things like that. You can get control over bank accounts. These orders are good for about 3 weeks. And then what happens at the end of 3 weeks, there's a hearing. And at the hearing, the other side will now have been given your paperwork and they'll have an opportunity to come in and they'll tell their story and you'll tell your story. And then the judge will decide what to do. Do we extend these orders to make them, a year long or 5 years long? The typical order like this is either 1 or 3 years. Do we deny the orders outright? What do we do? And if you are on the receiving end of one of these orders, all right, let's say you're not an abuser, but your spouse is claiming you are, and you get served with these papers, what do? Contact an attorney. Tell your side of the story. Go in with evidence, with proof, with pictures, with recordings, with whatever you have to let the judge, who doesn't know you, and the judge doesn't know anything that's going on, all right, knows nothing about you. So you're just two people that are coming to the court asking the judge to do some very extreme things. Restraining orders are big deals, and they can affect employment. They can affect ownership and possession of weapons. There's a lot going on. And so when you go, make sure you go there equipped to prove what it is you're claiming, or however it may be. But that's generally how domestic violence works. And either side is entitled to ask for an extension of time if they need more time to get ready. And these days, the courts are pretty good about granting those extensions. And so just kind of bear that in mind as well, that you have a lot more control over what's happening than you realize. And all you have to do is ask. You just have to ask the court. And the court is there to serve you. They're not there to serve the lawyers. They're not there to serve anybody but you. You are the customer in the courthouse. And they know that and they respect that. And so if you are reasonable and you ask for something that's reasonable, chances are you're going to get it.
Somebody did post, thank you, Melissa, that Haven Hills is a good resource, a nonprofit resource for domestic violence. And so,
absolutely.
I know you mentioned your website will have probably that resource on there too, but thank you, Melissa, for that. I mean, obviously domestic violence is scary and people are scared when they're in the middle of it, I would imagine. And I think that having resources of reaching out to, again, we are talking about Conejo Valley and a good attorney within Conejo Valley that can respond to you, dial 911. Nobody needs to be in a position right now of fear. And I'm sure domestic violence and especially abuse with children has to be incredibly fearful. And
it is. And in Ventura, we practice in Ventura as well. We're like right on in Calabasas, we're right on the border, basically. I live in Ventura County. I live in the Conejo Valley. And so Ventura County does all that, everything I just said, they do the same thing there. You can reach out to them. You can get ex parte orders. You can get emergency protective orders. They're very well equipped to handle that. There is one dedicated family law courtroom in the courthouse in Ventura that hears these every day. I was on the telephone today on a court call on just one of these at 11:30 today. I was on the phone with the court on an ex parte request. And it doesn't have to be domestic violence related. If it is an emergency, they will deal with it and they'll deal with it well. The Ventura bench, the judges in Ventura, in my opinion, are second to none. and they're extremely responsive and very compassionate, and they understand what's going on. They see this kind of stuff every day.
And more so now? Are you seeing more so now in the last 9 weeks than normal?
Yes, yeah, there has been an uptick in these kinds of actions. In fact, it's an interesting dynamic because some people, I mean, obviously there's lots of people who are genuine victims of domestic violence. And every time somebody calls our office, we always ask them, is there any kind of domestic violence going on? There are also other people that are weaponizing the domestic violence rules, and they're claiming domestic violence because they're trying to deny visitation, or they're trying to get a leg up on custody. And in that case, we've got people who are being victimized on the other side of that equation. And the courts are well acquainted with that. They see that a lot too. And so if you can afford to bring a lawyer into the loop, it's best because they're used to doing it. They know how to do it, and the process will be smoother. But if you can't, you don't need to panic. The court is prepared to listen to you. There are resources to help you fill out the forms, and all you need to do is get in front of the judge, or in this case, it'll be on paper, but tell your story and tell what's happening, and you will get results from the court.
So good information. So let's move to a party just deciding that they just don't want to live together anymore. And, you know, you've got stress of potentially unemployment. You've got a lot of stress with kids at home. And all of a sudden you're 9 weeks together and you're just like, this isn't working anymore. And we just want to get a divorce. What kind of questions are you getting around that? And how can you help the people who are currently, what do they need to think about? What's the process for that? What are the options for those individuals?
If you are in a relationship that is going south and you're quarantining at home together, it's not going to get any better. If you think being in a home with a spouse that you're not getting along with is bad now, wait to see what happens if you decide to file a divorce action while that's happening. So our advice to people is keep it together until we have an opportunity to get some orders in place, because nobody responds particularly positively when they're being served with divorce papers, which you can do. There are people out there who are doing that, and they're doing it while they're living together. And I warn them, I'd say, you know, you do realize that when you do this, it's going to get a lot more tense at home. You know, I don't care, I want to get it going. And so, you know, the best we can do is advise about that risk. But can you file for divorce during the pandemic? Yes. Can you serve the other side? Yes. It's a little more challenging trying to find somebody to do it, but it's not that hard. If you're using an attorney, they've got that figured out. If you're not using an attorney, the sheriff's office will do it. I don't know how able they are to do it right now, but I do know crime is down, believe it or not. So I think that there's, you know, they have a lot more time on their hands than they do usually. What you can't do is you can't get court orders right now, unless it's an actual emergency. So for example, if you're living at home and you want exclusive use of the car, chances are you're not going to get that from the court because it's not an emergency. Chances are you're not going to get a custody order right now if it's not an emergency. And so if you're not interested in actually filing for divorce yet, if you're willing to tough it out and wait to see how it goes, then the best advice I can give you in this regard is to take this time to do a few things. One, try to have adult conversations with your spouse to see if you can work things out, whether by reconciliation or figuring out a plan as to how this is going to look when all the dust settles. I've heard several people say, they've told me that they've told their spouses, as soon as this pandemic is over, we're getting a divorce. Okay, so if that's a real statement, and if you guys are on that page, then that might be a good opportunity to say, so let's sit down and let's talk about what that's going to look like. What are we going to do with the kids? Where are we going to live? How are we going to pay for everything? What kind of support is going to be paid? How's the property going to be divided up? And have that conversation in a calm, adult manner. And if you do that, you'll find that you will save a lot of money, because an awful lot of what divorce lawyers end up doing in the divorce is fighting with the other side over these very same issues. So the more of these issues you can bring together as a couple, and solve, the less expensive and less dramatic the process is going to be. And there are many lawyers will specialize in or do mediations. You know, you don't have to go to battle with your ex-spouse to get a divorce. In fact, you shouldn't. In a perfect world, we'd all be able to sit down and speak reasonably and intelligently and civilly and come to an agreement. Unfortunately, as everybody knows, this kind of breaking up is hard to do. As Neil Sedaka taught us, and now I'm showing my age. And it's hard because it's emotional, and it's hard because I want to see the kids as much as you want to see the kids, and it's not fair that I don't get to see them every day. And if you are capable of compromising with your spouse, it's way better than fighting with them. You just have to remember that everybody has to be on the same page, meaning everybody's willing to take less than what they want. And you have to put your priorities first. The very first priority, if you have children, if you have young children or any children, you know, minor children, your very first priority is them. Because what you're doing now, if you're getting a divorce, is going to impact them for the rest of their lives. And so it's infinitely better if you can sit down and say, look, we're not going to stay together. This marriage is over. We're both done. We're not getting along. And you might be saying it in much more vigorous language, but you should both be able to agree that you both need to do what's best for the kids. And sometimes what's best for the kids is giving up what you might want. And you just need to be aware that you need to do that. The court system exists to help people who cannot come to agreement between each other. The court system is not your place of first resort. It's your place of last resort. So reach out to mental health professionals, reach out to mediators, reach out to collaborative lawyers who practice collaborative law. One of the attorneys that unfortunately she was tied up today, but one of the attorneys who was trying to be available for today, her name is Lisa Zonder, and she specializes in collaborative law and mediation practice. And she's an excellent resource for this kind of thing. We do mediations as well. And really, if you can resolve it without fighting, everybody will be better. Your bank account will thank you. Your kids will thank you. Everybody will thank you.
I mean, really good advice, because I think that if you were adults coming into the relationship and you're adults having children, and it's, you know, the advice of being able to resolve, because it's really about the kids and it's your money pot, whether it's your home, whether it's your 401k, it's all in the benefit of the children. And sometimes when you get emotional, you tend to forget that. And I would imagine right now everybody's emotions are very heightened, and especially if they're not getting along and they're stuck at home, I would imagine that's even makes it worse. But to remember, it's really great advice of what you mentioned. Do you think the court system is going to open on June 22nd?
Well, the Ventura County courts are scheduled to open on June 10th or June 9th, whatever that Monday is. And I think they will, actually. If you had asked me this a week ago, I would have said, I don't think so. However, I've noticed, and I'm sure you've all noticed in the news, that the country is opening back up a lot more quickly than I had anticipated. The LA County court system was supposed to open on May 15th. And then on May 5th, way before May 15th, they kicked that out to June 22nd. And even a week ago, they were saying maybe not even then. I heard somewhere, I don't remember, it wasn't a court system, it was like the city, I think, of LA was thinking about staying locked down until the end of August. However, we're starting to see these states open up, and unless something dramatic happens within the next week with regard to an eruption of the COVID virus, I think that the government systems are going to open up sooner rather than later. So I do believe the Ventura court systems will open up on June 10th. They're going to be backlogged a little bit. I can't predict how much, but I can give you an interesting perspective. The Los Angeles County courts, after 30 days of being closed, had a 32,000 matter backlog.
Oh my gosh.
And so we're all kind of figuring that by the time it opens up, there's going to be upwards of 75 to 80,000 matters that should have been heard and still need to be heard. And so that's going to have a pretty big impact on the cases going forward. Ventura County is in the same boat. It's just not as big a county. It doesn't have as many cases. And bear in mind, in fairness, LA County's got something like 10 million people who live here. Ventura County has 856,000. So there will be a backlog. It's not going to be dramatic, but it will be there. And so they want to get rid of that as quickly as they can. And when they open up, I would plan on seeing a lot of physical distancing regulations, probably a regulation that you have to wear a mask and you have to stay 6 feet apart. And probably we're going to see a much greater use of technology where people can appear by telephone or they can appear by Zoom or one of those, Skype, one of those platforms. And that's really good, by the way, for the consuming public because it's way less expensive. We were figuring roughly 30% of a trial lawyer's revenue income is associated with driving to court, waiting around to be heard, having your case, and then driving back. And so I think we're going to see a paradigm shift in how lawyers practice law because I've been a client. I've had to hire a lawyer before, and it's not a very pleasant experience, and it's very expensive. And if there's an opportunity to save money in that adventure, we should. I tell all of my clients, my job is to keep you out of court because that's where the worst amount of emotional exposure and financial exposure happens. And so I think we're going to see that change as we go forward. But they're definitely going to open up, in my opinion. They're going to open up probably in early June.
I love that perspective. Sure. I actually think, this pandemic is going to bring out some great new changes in everybody's business. And I think there's no reason for us to be in the car as much we're in the car, and there's no reason we're not doing Zooms. And certainly we need to protect a lot of lives in the next year while we're waiting for the vaccine. And I think saving money and saving time and being more efficient, if that's what comes out of this, then we've won in some ways. As horrible as it is, let's look at the bright side.
I've read on the internet, on Facebook actually, when this thing first came out, they said that Isaac Newton discovered gravity when he was under lockdown because of the plague, and Shakespeare wrote Hamlet and King Lear, or Macbeth and King Lear, while he was under lockdown because of the plague. So great things can come out of this. It's been an interesting moment in our species history because it's almost like everybody's had the opportunity to step back and take a breath and look around a little bit and see what's going on. And our presiding judge in Los Angeles said that they've had to implement 10 years worth of technological advances in a month. And so I think a lot of good things are going to come out of this. I think when we go back to normal, it'll look very similar, I think, but it will have some distinct changes. And I think it'll have seeds of better changes that in a perfect world will open up the legal system for more people, because right now it's tough. It's expensive. Everybody knows that. If you ever hired an attorney, it's hard to do because it costs a lot of money. And I think that we're going to see a change in that to some degree.
Wonderful. Well, Marshall, you've really shared a lot of great information, necessary information. I know that there's got to be a lot of people out there that are unfortunately in a situation that they might be stuck and feeling in pain. So thank you so much for sharing. Is there anything in closing you want to share? Any other questions that people are asking you? Certainly we've got your contact information up here. Is there anything in closing you'd like to add?
I think what I'd just like to add is to stress that if you are in distress, you are not alone. There is help out there for you. You have to look for it, but it's there. And if you can't think of anything else to do, or if you don't have a computer, which obviously you do, or else you wouldn't be seeing this, call 911. You will be referred out. People are there to help you. It's not the end of the world. These are difficult times, but as they say, we really will get through it, and this will pass.
Yeah. And again, you're very caring. I can feel your concern. You're very good with your clients. And thank you so much for sharing and being on today. Wish you and your family health, safety, and certainly sanity through all of this.
Thank you, Lydia. You too. And everybody else, stay healthy and be safe.
All right. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Thanks for watching today.